It's Lee Cassidy from Tactile Technology, and what we're doing is our traditional Mondays, which is Diamanti Mondays, and we've got Erikjan Franssen with us to do an interview today, and Erikjan's going to tell us a little bit about his background, where he's been, and also how he ended up at Diamanti, and we're going to talk about some of the things that's key to people in this space at the moment, talking a little bit around infrastructure modernisation, digital transformation, and those kind of things as well. So let's get Erikjan into the conversation. So, Erikjan, tell us a little bit about your background and where you've come from, a bit of a history of yourself.
Yeah, so thanks, Lee. Thanks for having me on my Diamanti Mondays. I'm really excited to be with you, and you're in this little chat, and I would love to. Looking forward to this absolutely. So let me first correct one thing for you, because I'm from the Netherlands, and my name is Erikjan Franssen, but it's an absolute international tongue twist. So just call me Eric. Anybody that refers to me, you can refer me to me as Eric. Makes life a lot easier for any person that's not Dutch.
Okay, that sounds
Um,
good.
I'm based in the Netherlands, about 30 minutes outside of Amsterdam. Run the business out of Amsterdam for Diamanti, but have effectively been in the IT industry for the past 14 to 16 years, active engaged. Something interesting for you, Lee, is that my first job was actually based out of Birmingham, UK. So I was
Ah,
living outside Birmingham,
yeah.
UK.
So we're
Uh,
both foreigners who've lived in Birmingham then, because
yeah,
they
the
call me
both
a
foreign.
foreigner because I'm from a different part of the UK. I'm from
There you
Yorkshire
go.
originally.
So I was a proper foreigner as well. So I did travel a lot, and I have been engaged in the IT industry in various segments, of various sectors, from end user software to infrastructure monitoring. I spent a lot of time with HP, which later on became HPE, later on became HPE Software, then became Micro Focus, the English Micro Focus. Last 2 years before I left, I ran their Vertica business unit for Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And Vertica was in the big data space. I've been a leader in security space, application transformation space, infrastructure operation space. So I've done a lot of things, from end user applications to application development, and I've seen all those trends and move in, move out the past 14 to 15 years,
So
actually.
why Diamanti then now? Was it a particular thing that happened? Did you see the technology? What made you make that leap into Diamanti?
So first of all, having been with larger IT or larger organizations, my dream was always to, at some point, onboard with a Silicon Valley scale up or scale out organization, right? And my network inside of the Silicon Valley is quite extended. So what I found in the market is that I see the fundamental change, the fundamental digital transformation is actually happening now. I mean, we've been talking about agile development, new applications in the cloud, faster application development, faster release cycles for years. But it's been always talk and always been engaged in more like test projects or smaller projects. Look at AI, look at the world of AI ML. It's always been smaller test projects, and those things are now coming to production. And one of the things that you see happening in this market is that as they transform to more agile, they are looking to build distributed applications as well. And one of the things that I saw in the markets that are really leading, in this case was Israel. I spent a ton of time in Israel, and I saw that Kubernetes was the dominant, basically container orchestrator or container management platform around. So I knew that Kubernetes was going to be the next big thing, especially with Google as a custodian. I figured out they should drive that digital transformation. And then the second thing, I saw that Diamanti was innovating not only on a software level, which everybody's doing, but it's taking the approach from a hardware and software level at the same time. So they solve a fundamental problem with some fundamental patented technology that I found really interesting. And that combination was for me critical. And I figured out they must be on a path towards some success. And the last reason was that I'm actually broadcasting from Milan, Italy right now, because I'm visiting one of our key customers, which is Intesa San Paolo in Italy. And one of the things we saw is Intesa San Paolo was so enthusiastic about our technology, they not only invested in our platform, but they've also invested in our company. And I figured out, if a customer is so enthusiastic and finds their investment arm to take an investment in our company, that must be something very successful. That
Definitely.
was
You
the
say it's not many companies that will invest in an organisation as well as invest in the technology the organisation produces. It's a bit like
Yeah.
the it's the guy from with the Remington razor. I like the razor so good I bought the company.
Yeah.
It's that type of feel, isn't it, about it?
It's that type of
Yeah,
thing, right?
but
So
like you say, digital transformation is a big thing, and it's something people have been talking about for quite a long time, but they haven't actually quite started. And I think when people are looking at using things like Kubernetes and microservices to develop those new platforms, one of the challenges is it's not quite as easy to get off the ground as you might think. It takes a lot more manpower to get it working
yeah.
and make it work. So how can Diamanti help in that space?
So let me a little bit of background in that. So first of all, a little bit of background on Diamanti, founded by the same founders that founded Cisco's UCS, so Cisco's hyperconverged infrastructure, combined with some people that came from CoreOS, and CoreOS was actually a foundation what later on became Kubernetes. And I believe fundamentally there's 10 people in the world that actually do understand Kubernetes because you need a PhD or free to go to be able to fully comprehend it. I think two or three of those out of the 10 are working with Diamanti, and the rest of the world is faking it, like me. So everybody says they understand Kubernetes, but to be able to understand the foundational principles of Kubernetes and to be able to operationalize and productionalize Kubernetes makes it very, very complicated. And that has to do with the behavior of distributed applications inside of a network, right? There's no longer a proper virtual network or proper network segregation around your application because your application lives on multiple places at the same time, right? Because it's distributed. Same thing goes with storage. Persistent storage persistency for applications running on top of Kubernetes container is very, very important. The relationship between the storage and the application and the underlying storage is very, very important to manage. But as the application keeps moving around, it's hard to track. Now, Diamanti's unique offering, built up from the ground in hyperconverged infrastructure with two patented storage and network offload cards, actually helps to solve that problem and gives you actually a quick, easy 15-minute button, ready, set, basically appliance to deploy Kubernetes on. So you will be helped out of those operational problems. That's what Diamanti does.
And I've seen a lot of people have been choosing containers, especially Kubernetes orchestrated containers, because they've got the ability to move workloads around. So develop
Yeah,
once and deploy anywhere, whether that's in a public
yeah,
cloud service like Google's AWS and Azure platforms, but also on premise, you can do it as well. But the big challenge, like you said, was the storage side of things. How do you get the data, especially for stateful applications, to move around with it? And it was always
yeah,
difficult to do that. I think there have been players in the market that have found software solutions to it, but it's been very difficult to get something that's consistent, but also gives you some
yeah,
of those enterprise class features that most people see in a storage platform. Things like
yeah.
snapshotting and replication of data, I think, are critical things as well. So, would you think, Diamant is going in that space around, helping with that workloads that are now persistent and need persistent storage mechanisms?
So, so effectively, Diamanti has all those features and functions you were just talking about: snapshotting, replications, all those enterprise features that you need in order to operationalize a platform like this built in. Built-in security from the ground up, starting with self-encrypting drives, all the way through the network security, and then going up to the application security. Being able to having dedicated quality of service channels for storage and network, so allowing you to assign a certain amount of IOPS to an application. Those are the enterprise types features that will help you productionalize these applications. And most of the application, that's the important thing, most of these fast developed Kubernetes or agile developed applications that are running on Kubernetes are usually the customer facing applications, are the applications where you're actually your business is innovating,
Yeah.
right? You need to be able to have an enterprise feature to be able to run that in production, right? And then you can live up to the promise by migrating it off to public cloud, and that's where Diamanti helps as well with our Spectra software product on top of it. You can move applications around to public cloud, put it back, but you need to have that fundamental knowledge and capabilities built from the ground up in order to make that successful.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's always been a challenge because if you think about it, you're not always doing these things for the general operation. It's things like, how do you do disaster recovery if you do have a loss? Yeah, how do you protect the data, because now you've got a bigger attack surface from a security perspective. So ensuring it's all protected wherever it resides, whether that's at rest on a platform or in transit between components within a distributed environment. It's always going to be a difficult thing, isn't it? Coming back to the public cloud piece, though, a lot of people have seen public cloud as a nirvana. That's the way to do cloud first delivery. We use public cloud for everything. But haven't people found that a challenge around cost? Have they found it a challenge around delivering performance? Have they also found it a challenge because they don't always get the things that they think they're going to get from a cloud provider?
Look, Diamanti believes in the cloud because we help the development of cloud native applications supported by Kubernetes. So let me be very, very clear about that. And we believe there's a good place for cloud in a ton of applications, in a ton of places where application can run well and run really perfectly in cloud and be accessed from remote and give you all the flexibility and all the capability to run this out. And the point is, in the development, as we just said, as we migrate from small test projects to real enterprise production, some of the customers are, some of the players in the field are still going to experience this. And what happens is that once an application is very I/O heavy, so I/O intensive, transactionally heavy, network traffic heavy, and you need to deploy it in multiple network zones or multiple geographical zones, figure out what your Amazon bill is going to be, or your Azure bill is going to be. There's actually some tweets about this, about people taking a simple application and trying to configure it as expensive as possible in a public cloud, right? And they come up with bills like 20 to 30 million a month to support an IO intensive application, right? Now, let's say it's not 20 to 40 million a month for the general public, but let's say it's 20 to 40 million a year, right? 20 to 40 million a year buys you a whole ton of infrastructure and a whole ton of data center services. And now I'm not saying that people should go back and hire back operational teams and do everything themselves, but think about running certain applications yourself or with a co-location provider, run it there to make sure that the cost stays in line with the actual outcome of the application itself. Because sometimes these costs run out of whack and they don't give you the flexibility either to move your application around when you need it.
Yeah, I think it's actually getting best of both worlds, isn't it? I mean, the flexibility, especially things like elastic compute, so increasing capacity at busy times and shrinking back when not, but also getting over some of those issues that public cloud does get, where that it's not as predictable a cost as you might associate it. And we've seen a lot of organisations move there and have burnt their budget in 6 to 12 months of what they anticipated for 12 to 18 months. And quite quickly that money's gone. So it's finding the right thing, isn't it, to fit. But like you say, digital transformation is going to be a massive thing for organisations. That agility, within the development of their applications, but also a little bit different flexibility in deployment, I think is going to make a biggest impact. So if you were going to say the top 3 things that Diamanti brings to an organisation that are going to really make a big impact in the way that they can deliver their business or reduce costs or shrink down the time for development, what are the kind of things that you would say are the real big impacts that Diamanti could bring?
So let me sum them up. First of all, it's an easy button for deploying Kubernetes. You rack and stack a Diamanti server. 15 minutes later, you'll be able to deploy containers using Kubernetes on top of the Diamanti. There is no other platform in the world that can do that with the ease of the Diamanti. It's probably even a lot easier than even deploying applications in public cloud because of the easy button and the features that are built in. So that's one of the key critical measures, ease of use and of deploying. Then the second thing, absolutely top, is performance and application performance. I have examples of estates of Elasticsearch that were running on 20 standard x86 infrastructure boxes. They collapsed into 3 of the Diamantis and they doubled the performance at the same time. These are 60 to 70% cuts in infrastructure overhead, which means at the same time 60 to 70% less database cost, 60 to 70% less cost to VMware because you're not deploying on VMware anymore. So you can cut out the whole virtualization layer. 60 to 70% cuts in in electricity use, management overhead, you name it. These performance numbers are so absurd, and the cost savings are so bizarre high that a lot of our customers are thinking, what have we done in the past, right? Why haven't we done this earlier? So I think that is a key critical thing. And then for anybody that's doing digital transformation with Kubernetes right now, the biggest problem with Kubernetes for any customer is that Kubernetes is an open source project. So effectively, there is no help desk. There's no 0900 or 0800 Kubernetes you can call. If you have a problem on your Kubernetes layer, you can call, maybe you can go to GitLab, GitHub, hope that some developer from Apple is friendly with you and able to help you out, right? Diamanti provides the support across the entire stack, from the Kubernetes layer to the underlying infrastructure to the orchestration software that sits on top of it. So it's actually an insurance certificate, a cost savings measure, and an easy button at the same time.
That sounds really good. And say, we've been involved with Diamanti with yourself recently, and all I can see is the positive side of things. And it's quite interesting. You talked about VMware in there. We've seen organisations that have tried to deploy Kubernetes on bare metal themselves and struggled with it, and then are using hypervisors now to try and make it easier for them because of their limited knowledge and experience, which is increasing the costs and reducing the performance, just to try and make it easier. So, all I can see is the benefits of this. So thank you very much for your time today, and I really look forward to speaking to you again where we can look into one particular area maybe. Thanks ever so much.
Thanks, Leah. I'm happy to come back.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.